What is going on, guys? How you doing? Happy New Year 2026. I wonder if the 5 and the 6 can be corrected easy. I think so. Yeah. You could correct your 2025 when you write it on a check or something like that with the 2026. So, the last video that I put up was a failure video that I did back in the spring. I think it was important to kind of put out there that we all make mistakes. Like, this was my mistake. And I made a concerted effort to video that mistake and show how I did my remediation. As I do this video, it is specifically about a person who thinks that I make many mistakes. And he has taken it upon himself to call me out recently. Well, okay, let me back up. Back when I started YouTube 16 years ago, this coming year, 16 years ago. Yeah, my channel's a teenager. 16 years ago when I started out, I was getting a lot of pushback because the way that I was doing things didn't conform to TCNA and didn't conform to the directions, and I have to read the directions and I have to follow them just so, and I have to be a book soldier. I have to do it this way or it's going to fail. Like, I just didn't conform to that at all, and I still don't. I have changed my methods through the years. I have gotten better, not worse, through the years. My showers don't fail, despite the fact that I did this failure video. My bad. I build it better than I found it. When I first started doing showers, it's like the NTSB. You go in and figure out why the plane crashed, and then you remediate whatever rules and regulations and whatever it is out there that you have to make so that that type of plane doesn't crash again. And that's what I did with showers. So I would pull apart showers and I would find where the failure was or where the weak points were or where they just didn't do anything. Back when I was taking out showers, there was no blocking. Like, I don't know that I started doing blocking, but the 2x6 blocking between the studs, I never found on any of the showers I tore out. And then the very first ones, I'm like, oh, there needs to be blocking there for my pan liner to rest against, because otherwise the pan liner kind of bows in between the studs, especially with all that mortar pushing on it. So I don't know that I invented the blocking idea, but I started doing that to make the shower better. I started doing a lot of things that I take credit for that nobody else was doing back then, including the seal system. When I started doing seal system 11 years ago, the way I do a seal system, I was getting a lot of pushback from a lot of people. If you go back on my channel and you can scroll down, my channel 16 years ago, you can go 10 years back and you can see some of the showers that I built and how I built them. I wasn't comfortable. There was a minute there, about a year or so, where I was waterproofing the entirety of the walls down to the floor and about somewhere between 8 and 9, 10 inches outside of the perimeter. But I would leave the mortar free and clear because there are two things that were a problem then. One was mold and mildew coming up through the perimeter. Mainly, which I found out later, because backer board was being embedded into the mortar, mold and mildew was feeding off of that, and it would get into that corner all around the corner. And then homeowners bleach it out and it goes away for a week or so, and then it grows back again because it's always got the backer board back there. So as I decided I don't want that to happen with my showers, that's why I red guarded about roughly 9 inches out, but I kept that mortar open because I felt like water still needed to go in and then go out through the weep holes and all that stuff. Like I said, maybe for about a year or so. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, what would be the harm? What would be the foul with waterproofing the entirety of the shower pan? And I couldn't think of one. But the Achilles heel was going to be the drain. and I have a couple of drains right here, handy dandy drains. So the Achilles heel was going to be the drain, because where the mortar butted up against the drain, water could still get into there. So I mitigated that. My mortar goes up to about here. My mortar goes up to about here, and then I run a bead of caulking around where the mortar and the drain come together and smooth it out. I run RedGard usually first, then the caulking, and then I overlap onto the caulking with RedGard, which created a sealed system, because there's no way water could ever get into the pan the way I did it and the way I invented a sealed system 10 years ago. 5 years ago, Flow Effects came around. Somebody decided, I guess at Flow Effects, that my way wasn't good and they needed a product to make that happen. And there begets Flow Effects. Well, prior to that, it was, I think, arguably Schluter had a seal system at that time, but it wasn't really sealed because it was thin. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that because that's not the point of the video. The point of the video is this particular person, who I'm not going to call gentleman because I don't believe he is, but this person who, oh, sorry, I hijacked my own conversation. So around that time, 10 years ago, when I was doing my seal system, I was getting pushback, as I said, going in the comment section. It's like, what are you doing? Don't waterproof the whole pan. Are you crazy? You're stupid. You know, I'm like, whatever. Around that same time period, I was getting a lot of trolls. Trolls meaning, I was going to play the definition on my phone, but my phone is charging right now. But a troll is basically somebody who is trying to get a reaction out of you. So whether it's a smart ass type of comment, or whether maybe they mean the comment, but you don't have to write the comment, but they're still trying to get a reaction. And I would just block them because I didn't have time for the drama. And in the comment section, I want a mature response, you know, act like a man, not a kid. So anytime I had a troll, I would just block. I didn't have a problem with that at all. So many of my trolls aren't able to comment on my videos anymore. This particular guy was one of them. Apex, I think it was Apex Tile or something like that. But anyway, Jason Morgan, I think Jason Morgan is his name. And so I did a video about a month ago. I think it's about a month now. You can look on my channel. The video had to do with a floated curb. The way Jason was doing his floated curb, I'm just, you know, it's like, why are you doing something like that when you cannot definitively anchor this curb when you float it? And I know the reason why he does it, because other guys have done it and I've seen it and I just cringe. So the pan liner would wrap around the curb, and then you would set some type of form on top of that with a little bit of room left. And whether you put wire lath around it or whether you just did it with mortar, one way or another, you have a solid curb that's still wrapped around wood. So the wood curb would still be in place, and then the pan liner would go over that. And then he gets on to me, and a lot of people have, about penetrating my curb with some fasteners, which I don't have a problem with. And I'll get into that in a few minutes. So I made this video pushing back on Jason and the way that he makes his curbs, or the demonstration of the way he made his curb anyway. Hold on. So the pushback it definitely wasn't trolling, and it wasn't critiquing him as a person, because I don't know the guy. But I feel like on my channel through the years, most people that follow me are DIYers, homeowners, people that want to do it themselves, save money, have pride in their own work, whatever the case is. And because YouTube is not a monolith, everybody has their own way of doing things. People can pick and choose. They can watch Sal, they can watch me, they can watch Tile Coach, they can watch anybody they want and decide for themselves which is the best way. But I've worked for engineers before, half a dozen of them at least, a couple of them from Georgia Tech. And I've had the discussion with them because I'm kind of curious. So with your engineer hat, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about my way of doing this? And like, oh yeah, I'm right on board. So not that I need affirmation. I don't need I don't need somebody to tell me I'm doing it right, because I got a brain. I can think for myself outside of the book. Anyway, I digress. Jason decided that he was going to make some videos pushing back on me recently. Couple of things. One, that Jason does vertical videos irritates the hell out of me. I don't know why it does. It just does, because it doesn't matter if it's a shorts video, which they have to be vertical, or if it's a long form video. They're all vertical, and it drives me crazy. So every video that I bring up of his is going to be in vertical format, and that's not me, that's him. I'm not debating his skill set. I'm not debating how good of a tile guy he is, how good of prep he does. I'm not debating any of that. What I'm here to do is debate him personally, not personally, but professionally. Because one of the videos that he put out recently that I became aware of was he calling me out. He's calling me out literally by name, Star Tile. And in that video, he talks about wanting to debate me. Now, I have absolutely no problem, and I've offered this many, many times. Anybody that wants to come on a live stream with me that will be recorded, same as I'm doing right now, is more than welcome. You don't even have to show your face, because on this format that I'm on right now, you can just have your voice, and I can talk to you and have my mug showing, and you don't have to show yours. Like, you can be as anonymous as you want, but I want a serious conversation if we're going to have a debate. So I chimed in on that video where he called me out, and I said, hey, I just became aware of this. Sure, we could have a debate if you want to. And then he said something, and then I said something, and I'm not one to incessantly text and email back and forth. Let's pick up the phone and talk. So if you look at that thread, I think there's 9 or 10 different responses, and I could not get him to just simply pick up the phone. And like, yeah, let's have a debate. Let's plan this. And so he's like, well, I didn't mean right now. And I'm like, neither did I. But pick up the phone, like, give me your number, or here's mine. And I literally put in that text thread my number in case you missed it. It's on every video I have, but in case you missed it, here's my number. And I'm going, oh my God, like, what does it take for a grown man to keep on commenting in the comment section over and over, even though I've asked from the very get-go for a phone call, from the very get-go? So I was getting frustrated, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother with this, because obviously he's trolling. And eventually he did text me. And then I was shocked, because I have a text from him. Let me see if I can bring that up. So what had happened last year, we're in December now, well, the last day of December. See if I can bring this up. So yeah. So he hit me up. This is going back a year. This is going back November of 2024. Good morning, Bob. I know this is random, but I'm Jason Morgan from YouTube. Years back, I used to give you a hard time. Man, I really just want to apologize. Gone through a lot of changes over the past several years. Just as a man to man, wanted to say that I'm sorry. And that's not my character, whether you accept it or not. I sincerely do apologize. Have a great Monday. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And let me find my response to that. Hold on a second. Let me find my response, if I can bring it up here somewhere. Is this it? Yeah. Good morning, Jason. The thing about YouTube is there's a lot of people who troll. And if you take comments personally, then you have no business on YouTube. So I don't want to put a lot of emphasis on random negative comments. You need a thick skin or ignore the comments altogether. So if we ever had a back and forth in any of my videos, then perhaps I've long forgotten those. But rest assured, I don't take it personally. Oh yeah. So his response after I said that is, I understand. I just wanted to apologize. And I said, having said that, I appreciate you reaching out to me and apologizing. Accept it, of course, for what it's worth. It's worth a lot more, and I appreciate it. And that's basically what we were at back a year ago, right? So now go back to what I was just saying about us going back and forth on this video that he made about me challenging me to debate. And there's 9 or 10 back and forth, and I'm getting impatient because it's like, why won't this guy just call me? Just call me. It's so much easier and faster. So then he did text me, which I found a little weird because, you know, again, it's a lot easier to call than it is to text, but okay. And then his old text thread from a year ago came up, and I'm like, oh, by the way, we've had a text thread already. I've saved it. And he's like, yeah, so did I. And so I don't have that currently in my phone, but I didn't screenshot it. But basically, what he said is, yeah, sure, we could have a debate. And I'm like, well, when? And he's like, well, not now. And I'm like, well, I wasn't asking for now, but he's like, you know, after the holidays. And I'm like, holidays plural. So I guess that would be Christmas and New Year's. I don't know, because he didn't say after Christmas. He said after the holidays, because we could have had that debate last week after Christmas. But he's running the show. He's the one that made the video calling me out. So I guess I have to wait on him. Anyway, rather than having a phone conversation and talking about timelines and talking about subject matter and all that stuff leading up to a debate that we can record, he just said after the holidays. And I'm like, okay. I'm actually leaving the first week of January. I'll be gone for January and February. So it would be nice if we had it before that. And he's like, yeah, we could do that. I'm like, okay. But he didn't give me a date. So that being said, I have about 7 days left before I fly out and I'm gone. And at this point, I'm not even at this point, because of the flaky nature of Jason, I don't even care to have a debate with him. If I do, I will definitely post it on my channel. But without interruption, it's a lot easier to debate him without him, since he doesn't want to be on here anyway. So that's what I plan on doing, and that's what this video is about. And I'm sorry it's taken so long to give you the backstory. It's like 20 minutes of backstory before I get to the meat of the matter. Jason disagrees with my methods almost 100%. He disagrees that I disagree with pre-slope. He disagrees that I disagree with dry pack, the notion of a dry pack. He disagrees that I disagree with a pre-slope, I said that, with a curb, how to build a curb. He disagrees that he disagrees with almost everything. And he has gone on a rampage in that week since we've spoken on his shorts. If you go to his channel and you look at the short section, he's gone on a rampage. And I believe the reason he would not commit to a date to debate me is because he had all of this content or was in the process of making this content to push back on everything I talk about. Which is kind of ironic, because if you watch the videos, the pushback that I'm going to give is him inadvertently calling himself out. That's very, very weird, and I don't even think he realizes he did that. In other words, I'm making a video that he then copies and pastes on his vertically. So half of my face is showing because apparently he doesn't know how to copy a video properly. So he does it up. I don't know how he does it. But anyway, he doesn't have too much. And I'm not that techie guy either, but he's definitely not. So I think there's at least 5 videos, either 5 or 6 videos during the holidays that he didn't want to talk to me that he's posted. And when he talks about some of this stuff where he pushes back on me, he's proving my point in a roundabout way that he's not even aware of. So I'm going to get to that part. Let me bring up the first video that he made that was brought to my attention that brought me to where we're at right now.
Video on YouTube by Bob Star Tile. Bob, thanks for showing one of my videos. He showed a floated curb video that I have done some time ago in a mock-up shower that I had set up in my garage for training purposes. That video that I floated that curve was just in response to someone asking how to go about floating an old school shower curb like that. I did used to float my curbs like that quite on the regular, but I don't really do that method much anymore. Very rarely do I use that on an actual job. And in response to how's it attached, the wire mesh is folded and wrapped around your liner, and then it's attached to the outside of the curb, so you have a bond created over that whole curb. But nonetheless, I would debate any day of the week on different curb methods as opposed to wrapping a liner over 2x4s and running screws through the pan liner. And I would also welcome, like Bob, if you wanted to do a debate on it, because the shower curb really is one of the weakest points in a shower. When there's usually a failure in a shower, it's typically at the shower curb. A lot of showers that we tear apart, you can watch Bob's channel, Star Tile. There's a lot of curb failures from old jobs that he pulls apart. I myself have pulled apart a lot of jobs that the shower curb has failed. So, but I would also like to invite some what you would call more of the heavy hitters in the tile industry, maybe somebody like Isaac, tile coach, Mark Christensen, those type of guys that really have a really good knowledge and experience in the tile field to also be a part of that. Because I can tell you this much, all the shower curbs that I've pulled apart that failed, typically the ones that run screws through the pan liner, top and front. Because here's the thing, you guys, when you do a shower pan liner and it goes up your wall 6 inches on each side, the number one rule is right away that you never put screws down low where the wall meets the floor. You never put anything down low. With that being said, if you wouldn't put screws low all the way around the base of the shower because you're puncturing the liner behind the wallboard, why is it acceptable in the 5 feet in the front of the curb? It's not acceptable. I've seen many showers fail because people run screws through the front of that curb. They throw some red guard over it thinking that's going to fix it. The problem with those type of curbs, when you puncture that pan liner, it's internal. It becomes an internal issue. Topical membrane will not fix it. But Bob, in response to that video, I would love to have a debate and come together with you on debating about shower curbs. I would love to. I welcome it. If it's something you're open to, let me know. Talk to you guys soon.
Okay. So a couple of things. Let's unwrap that for just a few minutes. Sorry, I got a dry throat. Let's unwrap what he said. A couple of things. One, small potatoes. When you wrap your liner up 6 inches up and all that stuff, and you know you're not supposed to puncture anything below that and all that stuff. The liner, the way that a seal system works, a liner is not even necessary. My seal system, whether it's, you know, it doesn't matter what seal system you're using, you know, flow effects, all that stuff. The liner is not needed. And people often ask me, well, why are you using your liner and then red guarding over the top of it? Like, what's the point? And I'm like, it's a double indemnity. Like, I just feel like I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, if that makes sense. I'm not making the mistake on the surface in order for that pan liner to ever be there. But because I have a customer base to answer for, I feel better, I sleep better knowing that there's a pan liner there. Just in case that parachute doesn't open, I've got the reserve. That parachute 99.9999% of the time is going to open. but I've got my reserve just in case. And that's why. That's why my liner is there. So the fact that I'm puncturing my liner is irrelevant. What I believe he's talking about is a water in, water out system. The old fashioned way that we did, as I said, back 10 years ago, before I was waterproofing everything. In fact, no, that's not right. I was waterproofing everything prior to that. Anyway, either which way, the only point that he makes that's true, puncturing the curb with any type of fasteners through the liner and all that stuff with the curb, is often, more often than not, a failure because it's not waterproofed. All the failures that I've gone on, with a few exceptions, would not have failed if all they did is waterproof. If all they did is waterproof, it wouldn't have failed. The ones he talked about that I've taken out myself would not have failed if it was waterproofed. Period. End stop. I have videos, and I was going to put a whole bunch of videos and integrated them into this one because I have videos that I can grab. My channel is evidence-based. What he's trying to do, he's trying to present his evidence in mock-ups that refute how I do things, but he fails miserably because they're not real life. And because he manipulates his mock-ups in a way that he has, like a foregone conclusion, which we're going to get to. My videos contrast that immensely because they are real life. When I talk about not putting wallboard on top of your tub edge because you're going to have a problem, I've got a couple of videos on my channel where I just punch my hand through the tile, through the 4-inch tile, right through the sheetrock because they put it on the edge of the tub. My videos show water wicking through the curb and onto the outside floor and ruining the outside floor. Like literally on jobs I'm showing. I'm evidence-based. My channel is entirely evidence-based. Anything that can be disputed and that I don't have a video, then I will do a mock-up, but I'll try and make it as realistic as possible, i.e. Tile Coach doing his mock-up of a shower pan pre-slope that works. And then I called him out because there's Trobomat and nobody puts Trobomat under there. So I did my own experiment with no pre-slope, and all the water exited anyway, which we're going to get to because he gives me some problems about pre-slopes too. And honestly, I really don't want to get too much into a debate about pre-slopes because they're irrelevant. If you're still doing a water in, water out system, you're still using a phone booth. You're still using a landline. You're still using a VCR. You're still using stuff that is not relevant today. Today, it's either a seal system or it's a complete foam shower. Plastic, shower pan, plastic, foam walls, caulking. Like that's what showers have become. I'm in the middle because I'm not old school like he is, or like he mentions Mark Christensen. I'm not old school like that, but I'm not going to have, I'm not going to take a chance on a bunch of foam and plastic. Do I believe foam and plastic works? Yes. I'm just not one of those guys that's going to drive the truck that has the plastic and foam bumper. Both of my trucks have steel bumpers. I just believe you'll never find my bumper on the side of the road. Plastic and foam bumpers you see all day long, and trucks come with them. Like not just cars, trucks come with them. Anyway, I'm getting off course, which I tend to do. The other thing that I disagree with him when he talked about, the penetration of any fasteners, from that 6-inch mark below, and then why would you also then penetrate into the curb? If it's okay for the wall, why is it okay for the curb? Sorry, in reverse. If it's not okay for the wall, why is it okay for the curb? For that reason I just said, because I have a seal system shower, because I wrap my curb with backer board and I butter it, and then I red guard it, or Hydroban, or Aqua Defense, or whatever it is, a topical membrane. If he wraps his curb, any curb, with a sheet membrane, whether it be Curdy or any of the knockoffs, then you have a shower that's waterproof. So then what difference is the penetration of your pan liner mean? Your pan liner doesn't mean anything. I don't have to put a pan liner in. I do by default because it's force of habit, but I don't need a pan liner. That's what he misses. He misses the fact the pan liner is not needed. It's irrelevant, but I do it by default. He misses that. He also misses the fact that toward the end when he said, and if you're just going to rely on Red Guard, let me play that again. Let me play that again. Hold on a second. Oh, I just removed it. Sorry.
Hey guys, Jason, Apex Floor Designs. Hey, it's internal. It becomes an internal issue. Topical membrane will not fix it.
Topical membrane will not fix it. Of course, topical membrane will fix it all day long. That's what it's for. A topical membrane doesn't have a liquid topical membrane is what he meant to say. But any membrane that envelops your whole curb and your whole shower, you've got a waterproof shower. Your shower should be waterproof before one piece of tile goes on your shower. Period. End stop. Your shower should be waterproof. Period. What he's talking about is a VCR. He's talking about, oh, you're just going to wrap it with Durarock or Wonderboard or whatever, and then just call it a day. No, that's not what I'm doing. He watches my channel, but then he talks ignorant, like he doesn't watch my channel. Like, and then talking about ignorant about, again, my channel's evidence-based. When I do my experiments with Red Guard, and I've done many of them, and just put in the top on YouTube, put in Red Guard star tile. So, sorry, Red Guard experiment star tile in the search box, and you'll find my videos. I don't want to bore you with them. Cardboard box, small one, years and years ago. A larger one, 5-6 years ago. 2 weeks that water was in that cardboard box, no leak. A sheetrock box that I even froze the water. I'm trying so hard to make Red Guard fail, and I can't. But I'm showing definitively that both on paper, which sheetrock arguably is paper, and then on cardboard, which hello is paper, that they work. Like, then why wouldn't it work on Durarock, which is very absorbent, unlike paper-ish? Because paper, yeah, you're kind of putting it on the surface, and it doesn't absorb into it. Whereas with Durarock and other products like that, when I wrap my curb, especially because I butter it with Thinset, and Thinset is absorbent, then why would the Red Guard not absorb into it and be better than even cardboard or paper? 2 or 3 coats on my curb. I guarantee 1,000 and 1,000 millionth percent that my curbs are 100% waterproof and no water will ever penetrate them. So when somebody doesn't, and you know, he talks on another video about critical thinking, borrowing my term because I talk about that a lot. When he talked about what he talked about with the lack of critical thinking annoys me to no end. That's why I wanted to debate him, because I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I could have this talk with him right now and he could tell me where I'm wrong, but he won't debate me. He won't. And what he would rather say is, if you're just going to count on, here, I'll play it again. let me play it again.
But Bob, in response, they throw some Red Guard over it, thinking that's going to fix it.
It's not going to fix it. It makes it. You haven't fixed anything that's not broken. It's not broken. How can you fix it? So it's not broken to begin with. What are you talking about? Like, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know why he would think, based on my experiments, that somehow it's going to fail. Like, I don't know. It's bizarre. Whereas contrastly, I did my video a couple weeks ago about his curb and how he married his curb to his mortar. And how that mortar, because he's not waterproofing stuff, apparently, because he still uses a VCR and a payphone. So his mortar is now tied to his cement curb and will wick up from within the water, from within, go around and then down onto the subfloor outside, and it's going to ruin the subfloor over years. It's just a fact. It's going to, because I have it on my video. I've shown it on my video. Isaac shows it on his. Hold on a second. Let me bring him up.
Mortar is embedded in this dry pack. Then it just wicks up and over, it saturates everything, and then it's going to the outside of the curb and actually causing the damage from the outside of the shower, not even on the inside, because this is all waterproof, so nothing's getting below here, but the water goes up and over and damages the 2x4s under here. Okay, he is right on that. So we built these showers in this area for 50 years. This is the way it's always been done. It was the way I was taught. And when he first said that, I was like, nah, dude, you're tripping. But now that I see it happening over and over and over again, he is right on that. So we'll give that one to Star Tile. Now that I have that.
Okay, so and not to pound my own drum, so to speak, but when Isaac made that video talking about how water wicks from the mortar pan into the curb because they're monolithic now, like you've married them together, and it ruins the outside. Well, he was talking about the curb, and I think that was a concrete floor, but if it was a wood floor, it would ruin that too, because I've got those on my videos. I've shown when I take things out. What I started this video with is I'm like the NTSB. I show the damages. How you remediate, go forward to where you don't have those damages is kind of up to you. I've come up with my own methods by making sure that my curb never sees water, making sure that my wallboard is always raised. Another thing I invented, and the NTCNA, because I've got the book right up there, decided they're going to put that in there. I think about 2 years ago, they put that in there because they must have watched my videos where because they never had that. They never had that. I started raising my wallboard a long time ago, maybe 7-8 years ago. About that same time, I was worried about the mold and mildew at the perimeter. I'm like, you know what? If we don't embed our wallboard or have it even touch the mortar and raise the wallboard, never an issue. And that's what I started doing. So the idea that Apex, I forgot his name now, that Apex, Jason, I think Jason is his name, would think somehow or another that I don't know this stuff, like that I'm ignorant that curbs fail, because I'm the one that's been saying that for years and years. 90% of the time, it's a curb fail. The other 10% of the time is either knee wall or a bench, or a combination of the three. It's usually a knee wall because a shower head is always opposite of a knee wall, and it just gets bombarded and they didn't waterproof it. Had they waterproofed it, the knee wall wouldn't have failed. Had they waterproofed the curb that he's talking about, oh, I take out punctured pan liners all the time and that's the curb always fails, is what he said. Yes, because they didn't waterproof it. Good. And if you think a coat of RedGuard is going to save you, well, no, fix it. If you think that a coat of RedGuard is going to fix it, it's not broke. I dare him to ever pull up a video of a failed curb that's been waterproofed. It doesn't exist unless they applied the waterproofing incorrectly or not enough of it. It doesn't exist. A waterproof curb will never fail. So I am going to play a couple of Jason's videos, and I'm going to chime in, but I'm also going to contrast that with logic, critical thinking, actually thinking about stuff before you post a video that kind of makes you look ignorant, like you don't know what you're doing. And I'm not disparaging. I know it sounds like that, and I don't mean to, but I don't know how somebody that could logically think about things could not just make a video like this, but then rewatch it before he posts it and then post it anyway, because it's illogical. Hold on a second. Let me see if I got the right one. Let me bring this up. Add to the stage. By virtue of using pebbles. The sand mix, right, is still porous enough. If water gets down to there, it's eventually going to go into your weep holes anyway. So now you have a bunch of concrete that has blocked all these troughs from doing their job, which is really stupid. I can't imagine why somebody would want to do that.
Hey, look, guys, if you're going to go out to your truck and pour water in the engine oil compartment and then say, look, oil doesn't work, if you're sabotaging something in order to prove a point that goes against all critical thinking. So let's talk about
See, this is what I'm talking about when he literally mentions my catchphrase of critical thinking, but yet doesn't do the critical thinking that's required.
How weep holes actually work and a couple things that he missed here. So these are weep holes on the top. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, and then you have these water channels that guide the water to the weep hole. There's also water slots on the back. First of all, you need to use the right size pebbles. You use odd shaped rocks like this, drainage rocks. And by the way, the best way to plug up these holes right here so they're never functional is to stuff them full of mortar.
Not true. So I'm going to pull up a video pretty soon that I have. I don't want to interrupt this part, but when you clog weep holes with mortar, it's garbage. I can't emphasize that enough because, well, let me play.
Then you got calcium in your water, you got hard water issues, you have shower products.
Okay. Again, we're doing a sealed system. Okay. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. We're not doing water in, water out system. Why Jason is still doing that, I have no idea. I have no idea on earth why he would still be doing a non-sealed system. Calcium buildup and this and that and efflorescence and yada, 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 that's going to clog up your weep holes, right? Which is why he's advocating for these large stones. Large stones has never been uttered by any tile guy. It's pebbles. It's small rocks the way that I was showing when he took my video at the very beginning, because that was me at the very beginning of his video doing this vertical video thing where he, anyway.
That mud crystallizes and completely jams those holes up so they are not functional.
They are functional. Sorry to tell you that. And the video that I have, I'm going to pull up. I'm going to prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt. But this idea that calcium and blah, 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 blah gets into the weep holes, right? So all of this calcium and all this buildup and all that stuff only affects the weep holes, not the rest of the mortar, only the weep holes, right? Because water is doing what? It's going through the mortar. So it can only affect the weep holes if it's going through the mortar, right? It's going through the mortar in the weep holes and in the troughs. There's a bunch of them he's going to talk about, and I'm going to show you in a minute.
It doesn't plug the weep hole up. See that channel still free under there? You also need to have your pebbles around the perimeter of your clamping ring right here, like that. I have a drain barrel, so I'm going to use this sponge as my drain barrel to pack rocks around. But look, you have a channel there that leads to that top side weep hole. And then at each other weep hole where there isn't a channel on top, there's also a channel on the bottom. It's hard to see, but I showed it to you on the back side. So when you're placing your pebbles around your drain to keep the mud from clogging it up, see, those pebbles are never going to clog that weep hole. See how it creates voids underneath there? So not only do you need to protect those weep holes up there, but when you place your pebbles around your drain before you do your mud work, you're going to have pebbles around the outside of that clamping ring right there.
Those aren't pebbles, those are rocks. And we don't talk about that. There's nobody on the internet, nobody, no tile guy on the internet has never talked about rocks. They talk about pea gravel. Pea gravel is what that video that I made started with. When he had the little smart ass comment about, oh, you're going to put water in where your oil goes and then expect, no. Pea gravel, small, tiny rocks around your weep holes is what I pushed back on. And then Jason comes along and throws a bunch of rocks in there. We're not putting rocks in there. That's a huge bag of, I think, 40 pound of rocks. That's for outside landscaping stuff. That's not for showers.
So then look, before you do your mud work, you're going to sprinkle pebbles around. And the notion that adding these pebbles and then putting mud over it ends up making concrete. Deck mud isn't concrete, it's dry pack. Now when you pack this mud around that drain right there, and these pebbles are all around the outside as well, just like that. That's how your pebbles are going to be placed around your drain. So top side weep holes protected, underside weep holes protected. Take a look at those again. See those grooves right there? When you have that clamped down over your liner, those pebbles are going to protect that groove underneath there on that edge. See you guys.
Sorry, I gotta laugh. You know, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have a debate with him, because it's too easy for me to disparage Jason by myself, because I don't have a retort. I don't have somebody half screen me talking to him and him talking to me, where he can stop me in my tracks. So it's too easy for me to disparage him, and I don't want to, but I just find it odd that he has no self-awareness about him. Like, he has no self-awareness at all, because we've never spoke about pebbles in the way he's talking about pea gravel. What he's using is rocks. I've never seen a tile guy use that big of a stone, a big rock around their weep holes. Never seen that. So that's disingenuous to begin with. Then he talks about, oh, and then he said, well, with rocks, you're creating concrete. Oh, this is mortar. This is dry pack. It's not concrete. What do you think concrete consists of, Jason? Do you know the components of concrete? There are three. It's cement, it's sand, that's your mortar, that's your dry pack, and it's rocks. That's what concrete is. So, oh, this is dry pack. This is mortar. Yes. What is mortar? Two of the components of concrete. True enough, true concrete has lime in it. And yes, that is much stronger, and it makes, a little bit of difference, but not a whole lot. Secondly, or thirdly, or fourthly, I don't know the point that I'm beating a dead horse already. I hate talking about pre-slopes because it's so stupid, because we're not doing them anymore. But let me show you what he just showed you. This is, I believe, Odie. Yeah, this is Odie. And Sioux Chief makes one too, and I have a Sioux Chief right here. That's a Sioux Chief, and I'm going to pull that apart in a minute. This is an Odie. This is what he showed. This is a locking ring. And these are the 8 weep holes that he's talking about, that all 8 of them are going to get clogged. And oh no, you're going to have a problem now, because all 8 of your weep holes got clogged and cannot escape water. However, because they have troughs, you see, the same 8 weep holes, they have troughs. There's at least 4 troughs here, and there's 4 troughs at the bottom. And when that bottoms out on your floor, water is able to escape through there too. And guess what? It also has these huge bolt cutouts where your clamping ring goes on. So those bolt cutouts, right? Those are free and clear. All 4 of those are free and clear alongside your weep holes. So there's many places, these cutouts, the weep holes, the troughs that I just showed you. And guess what? In the middle of the drain, let me see if I can show it. I don't know if I can show it on camera. In the middle of your drain, you have cutouts. You see there's 4 cutouts where the threads are at? Those cutouts are also egress for water. So when your drain barrel screws down into your drain, crap, I don't have the setup. Do I have the setup? Well, this one doesn't have it. Yeah, this one has cutouts too. So this is Sioux Chief. And Sioux Chief only has 4 weep holes, and the cutouts are still here, but they still have the troughs here, the trough in the top and the trough in the bottom, and they still have the cutout on the inside, except they only have 2 of them. Where the threads are at, they have cutout here and a cutout here of the threads. So it allows water to egress in many, many different places. Not just, well, old school 4 weep holes, but they've increased those. It's not just the 8 weep holes, but it's the cutouts for your bolts. It's the troughs on the top and the bottom, and it's the cutouts for your drain itself, where the threads are at. So there's way too many to just rely on, oh no, my weep holes are clogged, and now my shower is going to fail. That's garbage. Garbage, garbage, garbage. And you cannot debate the reality of this. You can't, because I'm going to show you the video that I did, as I was saying earlier about, Isaac's video where he was trying to show where a pre-slope actually functioned, and then he cheated with Trobomat. I didn't use Trobomat, and I didn't use a pre-slope, and all my water came out. And guess what? My weep holes were clogged, and the water came out regardless. I'm going to bring that video up very, very shortly, because this one's getting way too long. But I got to push back on the lunacy of the lack of self-awareness when Jason pushes back on me with this fake fable stuff that he's talking about. Let me hold on a second. Let me bring this up again. Let's see if I can bring this up. Full screen layout, blah, 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 blah. Where's he at? Let me just talk a little bit about what he's talking about.
Placing your pebbles around your drain to keep the mud from clogging it up. See, those pebbles are never going to clog that weep hole. See how it creates voids underneath there?
Okay, so what you're telling me, Jason, is, and I'm going to call a weep hole a void for the sake of what he just said. So your weep holes are your voids, and they're tiny. They're tiny little weep holes, right? Let's play along your game. Tiny little weep holes will get calcium deposits, and they will get hair and I don't know what other nasty stuff he talked about getting into the water and somehow clogging up your weep holes. Yeah. So those tiny little voids of your weep holes and the tiny little voids now of your rocks will not do the same thing. So the rocks are spaced because you know as a scientist, Jason, that a rock now is spaced larger, even though when you do your dry pack and you're pushing down all that dry pack into those rocks, you're careful enough not to create too small of a void like you would have your weep hole, where those little tiny voids around those rocks won't ever clog up with your calcium and with your efflorescence and all that other stuff that you talk about. So the space you have between your rocks are large enough to allow water, but the weep holes that were designed to allow water won't. That's what you're telling me. Okay. Gotcha.
So not only do you need to protect those weep holes up there, but when you place your pebbles around your drain before you do your mud work, you're going to have pebbles around the outside of that clamping ring right there. So then look, before you do your mud work, you're going to sprinkle pebbles around. And the notion that adding these pebbles and then putting mud over it ends up making concrete. Deck mud isn't concrete, it's dry pack. Now when you pack this mud around that drain right there, and these pebbles are all around the outside as well.
Deck mud isn't concrete, it's dry pack. What are the components of deck mud? Like I already went through this. It drives me crazy. It drives me absolutely, I'll say it, batshit crazy. Let me bring up the other one since I've already kind of debated him on that subject. Let me bring this one up. On the previous portion, I said I was not going to do a mock-up or a demo of this, but I decided I would, mainly because I already have it. This is something I've been using for a while, but you can see clearly that the weep holes are clogged. I am just below that bottom line there, and most of it, if not all of it, should come out. When I said that all of it should come out, you can clearly hear it coming out. Not all of it will come out. There'll be a few puddles lingering around. But yeah. And then I spilled some too. Very definitively coming out with the weep holes clogged, which I already knew. But it is happening quickly. Slowly but surely, even the excess water you can hear it dripping out. Very definitively. Which I already knew also. I knew that also. Anyway, I'm going to take all this water out of here, put it back in the bucket. And we are really, really close to where we started. In fact, I think we're right at where we started. It just drives me crazy. It drives me absolutely crazy that people think that a rock would be a good idea to put in a weep hole. Okay. I just want to say something about my ugly mug being on a vertical. This is what I was talking about earlier, and this is not really, relevant to the video, but why, Jason, why do you make vertical videos? And don't you know how to steal somebody else's video full screen? Like, why is half my face showing? I have to say something about that every time I do a video. Because I think manufacturers talk about putting pebbles, pea gravel, whatever. I would never do that. You shouldn't have your weep holes clogged by anything, but you're doing that with your rocks.
Now any water that gets under your tile finds its way down this slope and it weeps into that dry pack and down through those pebbles, through your weep holes. Divot drain. So your weep holes are down here. You have the slots that I've showed you before under there. So the reason this drain is so effective, your weep holes get mass protection from the amount of gravel that you can put in this divot. Before I tear my dimple drain apart, I'm going to do a little test here, specifically for Bob at Star Tile, who insists that putting pebbles around your weep holes clogs up the weep holes. I don't know where that notion came from. I've got the drain. There's a piece of Kerdi under there plugging it, and I've got weedy sealant over that. I built this little box around this dimple drain, which has pebbles protecting the weep holes. So let's see what happens when we fill this box up. Just go ahead and fill this box up with water. Take a look at those weep holes that are clogged up with rocks. Huh. How come the rocks aren't plugging up the weep holes? The only thing that water is draining through is the weep holes, 100%. I'm just curious why those rocks aren't plugging up those weep holes.
Okay, I'm going to answer you, Jason, why those rocks aren't clogging up those weep holes. A bunch of stuff to unpack here. First of all, you have a very, very small, it looks like 1 foot by 1 foot box. It might be 18 inches by 18 inches, nowhere near a 3 foot by 5 foot shower. Nowhere near that, first of all. Second of all, you call a dimple drain, it's a divot. It's a divot drain, divot system. Old school, not needed. We're not doing water in, water out. I like divot system. It's a lot of work. I agree. A divot system is probably, of all the different ways we can build a mortar bed, a divot system is probably the best if we're still doing water in, water out, but we're not. Second part of contention with what you did there. Your mock-up was way, way, way too small. I still don't know how you packed your mortar down. I don't know what size rocks you used, although I could go back and probably look. They're probably the huge rocks that aren't pea gravel. Pea gravel is typically what we're seeing on every shower that's built, and that's what they talk about, pea gravel, the small little like fish tank type gravel, not the big honking rocks that you're using. Third part is not packing down your mortar to where now it's mixing with your rocks. The fourth part is you didn't let it dry out. I don't believe you let it dry out. What was the fifth one? There was something else that, let me go back to what he was talking about. Let me bring him back up.
Go ahead and put some more water in there. That's water draining through the weep holes with pebbles around them. You can tell by the way that the water is directing down that drain that it's coming right from those weep holes because of the way the stream is. Why aren't those rocks clogging up those weep holes? You know, it's one thing to speculate that a pebble could plug up your weep hole, but when you see a test like this, you get brutally refuted.
No, it's not brutally refuted, Jason. Here's the issue. When I showed, and let me reiterate this, when I showed on the beginning of my video a couple of little pea gravel pieces of rock, which are about the same size as a weep hole, right? Here's your weep hole. Look how large that is. That's the size of pea gravel. Any one of those. And pea gravel is different sizes anyway. It's not like they're not all the same size, because you could have a very small piece of gravel that goes in there and clogs that weep hole. And rock is dense, much more dense than mortar would ever be. So that rock, potentially, you've got 4 here, so potentially 3 of those weep holes could get clogged by a rock. Sorry, my bad. Jason used rocks. A pebble, a small pea gravel could get stuck into those, especially when you're packing down your mortar, because that's what we're doing. We're literally packing down our mortar on top of all those pea gravel pieces that are on there. So as you're doing that, yes, the propensity to have 4 pieces of rocks clogging your weep holes is very, very high. Pea gravel, not rocks. You got big honking rocks, and I agree, nobody's using those. And that's not what I showed on my video. So that type of insane lack of rational thinking, or even just throwing away anything that I said or showed on my video, is kind of a stupid retort, right? Let me let him finish his little diatribe.
The water is soaking through the mortar bed right there that you saw me put in. And it's going right back down through the weep holes. Let's continue to see these weep holes work. I still don't understand why those weep holes aren't clogged up with pebbles. You guys hear that water draining through those weep holes?
All right, so we've done enough of that, or I've done enough of that anyway. Let me play, I think it's this one. Hold on a second.
Just like that. That's how your pebbles are going to be placed around your drain.
Oh no, I played this one. Sorry. Let me bring this one up.
A video out there that purports to prove, which I'm very skeptical of. That video has to do with the proof of a shower pan pre-slope being true. It does not know that there's a slope on the board, nor does it care. It makes no sense to put a pre-slope on because water doesn't know a direction.
So the claims made are pre-slopes don't work, that the water will saturate and grow and go whichever way it wants to.
Yep.
That water does not know there's a slope down here. So here
Right.
we have the top bed of mortar. The Kerdi fabric is going to represent my pan liner, and there is a mud pre-slope underneath this pan liner. Just going to begin to pour water up here. Will water end up coming out from under that mud bed? Making sure that each time I pour it in, it goes ahead and soaks through the mud. I'm gonna pour a little bit at a time and allow it to soak through that mud bed. So we're just gonna continue to pour a little bit of water at a time. I'm just slowly pouring it up here and allowing it to soak in, not allowing the water to run off this edge and give us a false reading here. Tiny bits of water. Just continuing to pour small amounts up here. Lo and behold, guys, we have water coming out right there. Look at that. After minutes, that water is 100% coming out from underneath that mud work right there. Look at that. So the claim that water doesn't know there's a slope down there is absolute garbage. How could water not know there's a slope, you guys? Water runs downhill. Always has, always will. Coming out from underneath that mud bed on the pre-slope. Okay, so in a real world test, we poured water up there and allowed it to soak in, saturate that mud, and it has worked its way on the pre-slope, on the liner, and it's working its way out from underneath that mud bed right there.
I can't apologize for the way he puts his videos together, because the same question you must be asking yourself, I asked myself when I first saw it. Why is he videotaping vertical, and why is he doing it sideways? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just very, very unprofessional as a YouTuber or anybody producing a video anywhere to have a vertical video and then point your camera sideways. Like, you could see, if he's trying to show the water coming out like that, you could see it like this. You don't have to show it like that. It's just weird. Anyway, let me get on to this. This is part of what I was saying when I said he has no, not just common sense and critical thinking, but he has no self-awareness. Because what I was talking about earlier of him talking about how water is not going to wick up and this and that, and then he showed me to be correct. He's pouring water way over here, and now it's coming way over there. Why? Because it wicked. Not because there's a pre-slope, because it wicked. Let me explain something about pre-slope. And again, I don't really like to get into this because I already beat this dead horse back, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and I'm done with it. Especially when I started doing seal system, pre-slope is absolutely 100% irrelevant. There's a plumbing code. When you have a large pipe, a drain line, like for your toilet or anything in your house, like right going out to your house, 1/4 inch per foot, 1/4 inch per foot slope on that drain line. Where it's open, where there's no obstruction, where it's gravity fed, because water is now coming out here from the bottom and there's air pressure onto the water. There's a void of air pressure in an encapsulated environment. So 2 problems with his experiment. Well, there's a bunch of problems, but I'm going to talk about 2 specifically. 1, the fact that he's showing water coming out of his made-up pan liner, which is that Kerdi material you saw, is because it wasn't encapsulated, right? It's not a true mortar bed with mortar in it, tile on top of it, and not prone to air pressure. The air pressure that a normal pipe would have is not what you have in a shower pan. It's encapsulated. Water can't follow something it doesn't sense. It can't. The preponderance of the water will eventually, maybe if there's a pre-slope, find its way down to the weep holes. But as a rule, it's going to absorb, and it will never be dry. Your shower pan will never be dry because it's absorbed water. Dry is always going to absorb water, right? And it's the same way if I have these 2 cups and there's nothing in this cup and there's water in here, and I put a piece of cloth from here to here, by the next day, both of those cups are going to have water in it. Because water wants to follow the path of least resistance, which is going to be capillary action, i.e. your mortar bed. An encapsulated mortar bed at that, where water doesn't and can't escape through atmospheric conditions, through evaporation or through air pressure or anything like that. It can't escape. It does what it does. It follows all this mortar everywhere it can, and it stagnates there. It's in the same way if I had, let me see, I don't have enough props here. But if I had, I got a cereal box. Why do I have a cereal box on my floor? So I have a countertop, right? I have a countertop here, and I have a roll of paper towels, center of the countertop. And right up here, I pour water. Is water just going to bypass the paper towels and then go down with this slope? No. Water is going to absorb into this dry area 100%. And when this paper towel roll is 100% wet, the excess will now, and the longer as I run this water on the top, this paper towel roll will be wet, saturated 100%. The excess will go down this countertop, this fake countertop, which is a cereal box. That's how it works in real life. Your shower pan mortar doesn't know about gravity because the shower pan mortar is encapsulated. In that same way that if you encapsulate anything, if I try, well, I'm not going to go on and on. It doesn't really matter because we're not doing water in, water out system. I'm not, and nobody I know is still doing water in, water out system except Jason, who must be like 95 years old, because who would do that now with all the different options you have? It's a complete garbage experiment. Let me bring up my experiment that I did about 6 years ago. I think it was 6 years ago. And this is, again, the part of his video, which showed part of my video, is the rest of the story. And this is very odd about him too. This is why the kind of trolling mindset kicked in when I was watching what you're just watching there. Because he saw the entirety of my video and decided not to show it. All he showed was the very beginning where I disputed, there's a video out there showing a pre-slope, da da da. So he showed the beginning, but he chose not to show the entirety of that video where I showed that a pre-slope was irrelevant. I literally showed a pre-slope was irrelevant and that I clogged the weep holes on that experiment and it still drained out. And he decided not to show that. I wonder why. I wonder why, Jason, you decided not to show the rest of that video. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me to push back on me and then decide to take my evidence and throw it out the door and then make up your own BS mock-up, because your mock-up was BS. Mine literally showed how it works. Let me bring mine up. Add to the stage.
Soak this shower pan to make sure that it has pretty good saturation. There's no dripping going on. I think I poured the last water in here probably about an hour ago, so any water that's left over residual has already gone out. If there's still any at the bottom, like some people contend, then it's still at the bottom. Either which way, I have marked both of these. My bad, I didn't mark that one because it doesn't matter. So I'm right up to that line right there, right just below that where that line is at with my water, and then I'm going to pour this into there, and that's going to be the water that I pour in. And at the end of the experiment, the water should be back up to that level or just slightly below that. I do not know the results of what this will happen on this eventually. You are watching it as I do, so it'll be interesting. I've actually waited 2 weeks because I've been busy and I haven't been able to, a lot of people have gotten on to me, when's the experiment going to happen? I've been very busy, so I haven't been able to do anything. There's no water left in there. Not even a drop. Well, a couple drops. Yeah, there we go. So we have a while before that fills up, and once that happens, I will come back. I know some of you are curious about the process. I would videotape the whole thing, but my video would end up way longer than it is. This is about 5 minutes in, so we're better than halfway up already, and the water's steady streaming in. Interesting, it's only been about 12 minutes. Look at that. I mean, like literally right under the line.
That could be my favorite thing I ever seen.
If there's any water content still in there because I didn't do a pre-slope, it's ounces, like literally ounces. I was not expecting that. In fact, on the videos that I make where I talk about pre-slope not being necessary, I agree that there could be some water content in there because it's flat. Although when I do my bottom drain flange, I always taper out, so my flange is flat as well. So my contention is, yes, there might be minuscule water content, but you still have a saturated shower pan whether you have a pre-slope or not. And the whole idea of a pre-slope is water in, water out. And what we had with no pre-slope is water in, water out. I was actually expecting it to fail. I think with logic and common sense dictates my day, and anybody else who just follows the lead is kind of like the emperor's clothes, the emperor's new clothes, as it were. Google that, you'll see what I'm talking about on that story if you don't remember it from childhood. The emperor's new clothes. Yeah, So there you go. But this is actually quite surprising. I was not expecting this at all. I know I'm repetitive in a lot of stuff I say, but I'm still very surprised at the result. I figured that maybe without a pre-slope, you know, I'm coming down just below the line, and there's some water that's stagnant that's going to sit in there, but that's not the case. I mean, it's literally to the line that I put it at. So that is a surprising result. Regardless that I was looking, yes, I was definitely looking for that result, but I didn't expect it at all. Just for my peace of mind, I'll not change my method. Definitely now, based on this, I will not change my method. I will not continue going forward with thinking, man, maybe I should do a pre-slope. I just absolutely have no doubt now whatsoever that the pre-slope is useless. That's just my opinion. You could differ with my opinion, and I'm sure you will if you've done pre-slopes all your life. But that's opposed to me not having done pre-slopes and getting this result. Makes me happy. Let me show you something. I told you when the video first began, all drains are going to have a barrel, screw type barrel, and that's an ingress for water. Almost all drains are going to have the bottom trough that's right next to the pan liner and the top trough, which is 1/8 of an inch up. They're all going to have weep holes, and they're all going to have these little divots, these little areas where your bolts go into. So there's a lot of ways for water to egress. The point being is that everything's clogged up yet. In about roughly 12 minutes, more or less, all my water that I poured in there was able to get out. I don't know what else to say. You know, for probably the last 3 or 4 years, I've asked people, I've challenged people to do a mock-up like this to show me that a pre-slope works. And so somebody did. But it was a fouled experiment because it wasn't done without a pre-slope. So now I've done one, and I really didn't want to have to go through all the trouble to do one, but now it's done. And if I've convinced nobody else out there, I've at least convinced myself.
All right, let's check our YouTube channel and see how we're doing.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, and I have to reiterate this because that's just the way that I do stuff, you know, like I talk too much, but I want to make sure that there's no questions. That video that I made was in response to, as I said before, Isaac Ostrom, tile coach, when he produced a video where he did a pre-slope as a pushback, kind of like this guy is doing, as a pushback to me saying, hey, a pre-slope works. And then he had Trobomat. Go Google Trobomat, which is a landscaping material for water to, anyway, go Google. Trobomat is never ever used in a shower, but it was a foregone conclusion that if he did not use Trobomat, all of his water wouldn't have come out. So I made a video in kind pushing back on that video that he made with no pre-slope. No pre-slope. And it wouldn't have mattered if that mock-up that I had, I think it was 3 foot by 3 foot or whatever, but if it was 5 by 8 or whatever, I would have had the same result. Water still would have come out. Maybe not all of it, because again, there's a certain amount of water that's still going to be stagnant within the mortar bed itself, time after time after time. However, again, this is going back in history, and we're not doing water in, water out systems anymore. So my pushback on that video specifically was to show that a pre-slope is irrelevant. If you want to do one, fine. I have never, ever said, there's not one video that I've ever said, don't do a pre-slope. I've never said that. Never, ever, ever. Did I say ever? I've never said don't do a pre-slope. I said I don't do a pre-slope. And I explained the reasons why. And on that video you just watched, I show the reason why. It's a waste of time. And so the trolling that I used to get is, oh, you're too lazy to do a pre-slope. No, a pre-slope doesn't take long. A pre-slope is like maybe 1 bag of mortar, you know, little wire mesh, And yeah, you just do that and let it dry out and all that stuff, and then put the pan liner on top, and then put the mortar on top of that. It doesn't do you any good. And the weep holes, as you saw on there, were clogged. And guess what? Water went through the weep holes anyway. Oh, because it didn't have all the body oils and hair and what did he say? Mineral deposits and efflorescence and all that stuff clogging up your weep holes, despite the fact that it's not just weep holes, but it's troughs and it's cutouts and it's all of, whoops, and it's all of this that I showed earlier, all the cutouts, all the cutouts of the threads inside here and the bolt holes and all of that stuff. So we're not, even if you did water in, water out system, you're still using a VCR, you're still using a payphone and all that stuff. Even if you decide, you know what, I don't want to do waterproofing. Clogging your weep holes is not a thing. If your water in the entirety of I can't do math very well, 160 pounds, 4 bags, 160 and 160 is 280. 200 pounds plus of mortar in your entirety of your mortar bed. And when it gets down to here, the water can't escape. It can escape everywhere else. And it's not going to get efflorescence over here. And it's not going to get all of those mineral deposits. But for some reason or another, we don't know why, when it gets to a tiny little area, all of a sudden it's going to clog up and you're going to have a failure. I honestly wish that what's his name? Apex. Sorry, Freudian type of thing. I honestly wish that he would have called me and said, "Hey, Bob, I'm kind of busy right now. Holidays are coming up. I got family and friends around all week long, all the way through Christmas, all the way through New Year's. Let's set it up for like January 3rd. And then I can make that decision if I'm going to be free on January 3rd. See, we have to talk. We can't just type into the comment section. Because I'm leaving January 9th and I got a bunch of stuff to do before I leave. And I really would have liked to have a discussion with him because I would like the feedback. I would like him to disprove what I've shown. In fact, one step further, and I've said this about Isaac also, do my experiment, right? Don't just trust your own experiment, but do mine. Because you're going to have you're going to have the same result that I had if you do mine. And so when I post my experiment videos, or even I show in real life how things fail, and people still don't pick up that concept, and people still don't believe what they see with their own eyes and with their own ears when I talk, and they want to push back, but yet present nothing but garbage in return and fake mock-ups, because we're not using big giant stones that are this large. It's pea gravel we're talking about. Air pressure matters on that pipe. On that pipe that is empty and now has water in, air pressure gets to push things away. Put a paper towel in the way. Put a paper towel, stick a paper towel inside of that pipe, and guess what happens? Water's not going to get through there. I don't care what kind of slope you have until that paper towel roll is completely saturated, and will remain saturated as long as water keeps coming through there. The simplicity, you don't have to be a scientist to understand this stuff, but I have to explain it I have to dumb it down, which is unfortunate. I don't really care at the end of the day because I'm not doing water in, water out systems. So the whole conversation that I've had now for an hour and a half is irrelevant and is a moot issue as far as I'm concerned. But for some reason, Apex thinks that it's relevant now, and it's not. Maybe in his area it is, but again, if I had I had a failure, which I showed on a video. If I had a failure, I would make sure that the next time I don't do that failure. If somebody called me and said, "Hey, Bob, 20 years ago you built my shower and guess what's happening?" And then I went and looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, I would change what I'm doing. But I built every shower the same way and gotten better over the years. So if I'm not getting a failure, everything that Apex talked about is BS. It's just bullshit. Like, I'm just going to say it, bullshit. What he's talking about is out his ass, literally, because I built my own shower in the other house I had, and it lasted 12 years. I never had those issues he's talking about. 12 years. I've taken out showers. I'm friends with some of my customers that I built showers for past 12 years ago. Never had an issue. And I know there's tile guys, and a lot of other tile guys like to say the same thing. Well, I've been doing the same thing for 20 years and never had a failure. And that must be like the phrase that you coin when you don't know what you're talking about. But yet those same people that say that are the people who have 20 years and purport that they don't have failures, which is kind of funny. Like, it's hypocritical to say, oh, the guy says he's never had a failure in 20 years. Well, you've been doing 20 years the wrong way, da da da. But then how do we know you're not doing the wrong way for 20 years? Because you've been doing it for 20 years too. I'm just saying. Anyway, I'm done with the video. I am done with my diatribe. I promised in one of those pre-slope videos, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, that I would never talk about pre-slopes again. And weep holes and that whole garbage diatribe, that I wouldn't speak of it ever again. In fact, on that video, I said, discuss amongst yourselves, but I'm done with it. And then somehow the trolling that Apex did brought me out. So I had to talk about it again, because lawyers have a saying that an untruth, how does it go? A lie not disputed in 24 hours becomes the truth. Or what do they say? The 24, it's something like that. It's like, if you don't say something about a lie in 24 hours, then by default it becomes the truth. So I just had to push back on Apex and let him know what I thought, since obviously he didn't want to come on video with me. Because if he did, as I said, he would have picked up the phone over a week ago, because over a week ago is when we were doing that stupid little back and forth in the comment section, which I'm not patient enough to do, because I'm not 15. So yeah, that's about it. I don't know what video will come up next following this one. This is a long one. If you made it to the end, if you followed from the very beginning to the very end, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, and thank you for all of my subscribers throughout 2024. Well, throughout the last 16 years that I've been on YouTube, but also specifically for 2025. Thank you for my subscribers. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Like, subscribe, do all those things. The algorithm has a way of, when you like things, that it pushes it forward and all that stuff and blah, blah, blah. And now that I am monetized again, it does matter. So yeah, like, subscribe, make a comment, share. Why do people share videos? Why would you do that? Anyway, yeah, do all those things. It will help in the long run. You know what? I might get some merch too, now that I'm monetized. Should I get some merch? If you watch it to the end, answer that question in the comment section. Should I get some merch? Think Like Water? Or like, what should I say on my merch? Would you buy it? Would you even buy my merch? I don't know. Seems a little cringy. Seems like a money grab. There's a lot of money grabs going on with some YouTubers lately. I'm just saying. Bet you know who it is I'm talking about. Anyway, have a wonderful, happy, prosperous new year in 2026. And we will see you on the flip side at some point.